Where would you feel like that shift happened where it's not just run the play in the field as a tech to where it's now more of a cultural thing across the organization?
I think a lot of that has to go back to the departmental meetings, where we're getting the management team together and we're discussing it, to where some departments didn't have a play and some still need to create a better play, better processes. So I think by getting people together, teaching about it, talking about it, recognizing that we have a system in the field, but we don't have a lot of systems in the office. I think that bringing people together, that's the only way that you can actually get it widespread across the management team. If we didn't have those departmental meetings and actually talk about it, there would be no play.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting at the Circle K out here on Tryon, right at like Westinghouse, and I was coming out of the Circle K, and at 4:30 or 5 to try to get on Tryon, to get out into the traffic, like it can take you a long time. Right, it'll take you a long time. And I was sitting there in traffic, and I'm just waiting for somebody to be nice to let me out. Unfortunately, nobody was, so I just continued to wait. And I saw one of our vans, and the van kept going. Now, what if I was a member? What if I was a potential customer? Run the play would be that courteous driver. Stop. Let them out. Recognize that you have 2 miles of traffic behind you, and let them out. That's what I mean, that run to play is so much bigger than, showing up at the customer's home.
Yeah. And I think this maybe kind of goes along with what Rob's asking here. So a theme, we choose themes,
Yep.
And we've done Run the Play before, and Run the Play came back for this year. Of all the things that could have been chosen, why did it feel like this was the right thing right now?
Because the service system has been in the field for 10 years plus, a little bit longer than 10 years. And all the other departments, like I said, they haven't had a play. This is kind of in their infancy. Mm-hmm. The last time we had Run the Play, it was all about the field. That was the theme. It was Run the Play, but it was to the field. We didn't discuss it really with other departments. Mm-hmm. But when you look at what impacts the field, what impacts the homeowner, what impacts our customers, all the plays behind the scenes from the support departments has a massive impact on it. So this year we wanted to have Run the Play for the entire organization and really put an emphasis on all departments. If they don't have a play, we need to create a play. We think that they don't have a play. It just may not be documented. Mm-hmm. We're doing something. We're doing processes, but we need to go back through those and make sure that is the correct play we're running to support the organization.
Mm-hmm. What's the risk of not running the play?
There's massive risk in not running the play. If you think about just the example that I gave about trying to get out in traffic, right? With all the trucks that we have on the road, and if we have every single person that's not going to be a courteous driver, they're going to be speeding or not letting people out, guys, that's a moving billboard. People will remember what that experience was, whether somebody let them out, gave them a polite wave, or if they just kept going and didn't let them out. So there's impact from a customer-facing standpoint. As far as running the play, it'll have impact from the customer journey, the customer experience, but also just how employees feel, because every department's passing work from one department to another. And if that play's not ran right, we all know what happens at the intersections, mm-hmm. right? Crashes happen. We don't get the correct information passed over to the other one. It makes the job harder for the employees. So you have internal, problems that come from it, and you're going to have the customers that are impacted by it.
Yeah. What does it look like for Morris-Jenkins when everyone runs the play at every stop that the customer interacts with everyone? What would that look like in a perfect world?
If everybody's running the play, you're going to have happier customers. You're going to have happier employees. We're going to have lower costs, right? Because we're not having that rework, and it's cutting the time down in order to take care of the homeowner. It has a big impact in all of those things. If you look at most organizations, right, you're going to have one department that has a play, another department that has a play, and another department that has a play. It's just those departments never talk. They never know what is the play going from one department to another. So when you're disconnected that way, think about it on the receiving end. If I'm receiving information from the field, and let's just say I'm in purchasing, and this happens to us, we get the wrong information to order the part. That messes everything up downstream. Everything. Puts more work on purchasing, delays the repair for the homeowner, increases our cost because we're spending more time and resources to find the right information and order the part. So it has massive, massive impact when we don't run the play. And when we run the play, it also has a massive impact.
So I'm starting to make some more connections right now. So you've talked about running the play. Every department has a play. The processes and systems make up that play. So then processes and systems, of course, makes me think of MJ Easy. And kind of like Rob's example about having to go through all these 100 steps to get a single piece of information, right? That's not making it easy for the customer. So I think if I could, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things talking about how running the play and MJ Easy or making it easy for customers to do business with us, maybe I should take a step back and try and define. I don't know if that's the right word. I know MJ Easy, you talked about MJ Easy in the February newsletter. And for our people who don't necessarily hear MJ Easy all the time, it directly ties to our purpose, which is to make it easy for customers to do business with us. It is one of our 6 fundamentals. And it's just our focus on making it effortless for the customer. Mm-hmm. So now I'm starting to see all of these things, these gears starting to interleave. So when we're running the play, we have our systems and processes in place in all departments, which then in turn helps us make it easier for the customer. And that's really what MJ Easy is. So for those people who don't have as much experience, I guess, around MJ Easy, I guess I'll ask the same question. How would you define what MJ Easy means to a new hire or someone who doesn't have as much experience here at Morris-Jenkins?
Well, when we first talked about the topic for today, we talked about run the play or MJ Easy. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, those are kind of, tied together because they are. And I want to go back to what either Rob asked or you asked a minute ago, but what does it look like when we don't run the play, or why does it happen? And, I said human behavior, but really how that happens is that we start to cut corners, right? You'll cut corners if you go to a house. You might not check a certain area or check a certain thing, and there was no impact. Customer didn't complain. They still had a happy service, left a good review, and then you go to the next call, and you cut a little bit more out, and then you cut a little bit more out, and then you cut a little bit more out. That's the human nature that I was talking about. When things are going well, you're more likely to cut a little bit of stuff out. And you don't realize you've cut it all out until you know that it's not running the play and you start getting complaints, and we know what that looks like. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to clarify that piece of it. But MJ Easy, if you look at MJ Easy, there's kind of 2 parts that we've talked about, from the management side and what the management looks at. That is going through our processes and, looking at our systems and removing the complexity from the business, right? That's what the management team's been doing for the past few weeks. We've been talking about it in the departmental meetings. But from just anybody, frontline person or anybody else, when you think about MJ Easy, it's what can we do? Like, you're in a system. You're in a process. We're looking for those employees that are in that process, in that system, and says, hey, I think I can make this even better. I think I can make it easier for the homeowner. Where I was here waiting on a part, and it took me X amount of time to get the part, I have an idea of what we could do differently so that I'm not having to wait. That's running the play with an MJ Easy mindset. So when we talk about MJ Easy, it's more of a mindset of how we operate and what we believe in, more than just something straight out of a textbook, right? And I think that's what a lot of people look for is like, what does it say in the book? What's the definition? And it's really how we operate. It's how we operate around here. Yeah,
I always think of the analogy of we'll use a swan because that's what we are, as a swan, not a duck. Not that there's anything wrong with ducks, but I always think of it as like you see the swan on the water, and what the customer sees is we want to see the swan, the beautiful swan, just gliding along, right? And then under the surface is the rest of us behind the scenes, working through our processes. But the customer doesn't see those things. Mm-hmm. So when we spend time working through those processes and systems, maybe we don't have to flap so hard under the water, but at the same time, the customer, their experience should feel very smooth, very seamless. Mm-hmm. I remember Mr. Jenkins talking about, when a customer calls in, they just want their heat. They just want their heat to be turned back on or their air to be back, especially in the heat of the summer in North Carolina. So I think that is it's hard. I think sometimes in the day to day, to keep that